Hi, we're here for the Comics Experience Book Club meeting of the month for the December pick, which is Moon Knight, Lunatic by Jeff. Oh, this is November. It's true. It is November. No, December is that book there. It is the November book. It's because we're in December. That's why I'm a horrible person. And we are here with Smallwood and Jeff. Is it Lemire or Lemire?
It's Lemire.
It's Lemire. There we go. Thank you because I should have asked that ahead of time probably. I'm horrible, aren't I? And this is the weirdest night because there's literally nobody here except for me. We've never had this. We've never had less than 20 or so people here in the audience, and I don't know what it is. I think part of it is we're in a drought in California, and it started raining for the first time in a while, and we've had rain, and I think people are like, rain, what is this foreign concept, rain? And so they're staying home. That's my guess, at least. But we'll roll along anyway, because there will be people. We have people. I can see there are people on the internet watching us, and hopefully this also means people will be watching from home later. So I apologize for being the sole voice gentleman, but there we are.
Cool.
Thank you both for coming here. You're both East Coasters, so I know this is a little late for you. So we'll do what we can here.
That's good.
Great book. I think this was a really fantastic book, and I want to talk about the book and the genesis of the book. But I think maybe the better place to start is with your respective careers. So I would say that you guys almost have kind of opposite. Your first books were all creator-owned books, very independent, very personal and heartfelt, and specific to you and your thoughts. And Greg, what I see of your career so far has been more company work stuff. That's not. That's not a judgment. Sorry, that came off really bad. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Oh my God, this is the worst because there's no one in the room, so I feel like I'm carrying all the weight. But it's. I mean, they're very different places to come from as creators, and I'm wondering if there's an initial thought that either of you have on that, in terms of where you came from, or what comics means to you.
Jeff, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question, but I mean, all I can really do is sort of talk about how I got into comics, I guess, and why I started doing the kinds of books I started doing. This would have been around 2000 or something. I got out of school and I got really interested in drawing again and interested in comics again. I had kind of fallen out of it for a couple of years. I went to film school and I thought for a while that's what I was going to try to pursue, but it just didn't really suit my personality. And near the end of film school, I kind of rediscovered, I mean, I always loved comics. I never really stopped reading them, but I had moved to Toronto from a small town, and I started going to comic shops again, and I just sort of found all kinds of stuff that I hadn't really been aware of. A lot of European comics, a lot of indie comics, and it just really ignited my imagination again, and got me drawing again. And I spent 4 or 5 years just practicing drawing and trying to figure out what I was doing. And and at the time when I kind of got into starting on things like Essex County and my early books, I had no way. I always loved superhero comics. I grew up reading superhero comics, but I just never thought I could ever actually do that. I thought this kinds of stories I wanted to tell were much more idiosyncratic and personal, and I kind of had my own unique style, especially with my artwork. So working for Marvel or DC was never an objective or a goal of mine. I really just wanted to be a cartoonist and be an artist. And so that's just how I started and what I did. And the irony of that was by doing all that, I guess I found or developed a voice as a writer and a creator that then became attractive to DC and then Marvel, So I guess that was my path.
With me, it was, I would have chosen actually to do more creator-owned work, but to get anything, picked up. I think, my Jai Nitz was my collaborator on Dream Thief. He wrote it and I drew it. We had this really close partnership, developed the stories together, and he was kind of with me while I was doing the art. Literally, because we live in the. Can you hear me?
It's frozen on my. Actually, everything's frozen here.
Oh, that's not good.
I can hear you, Craig.
Oh, you can hear me? All right. Well, we'll just. Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. We lost you for a minute there.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the internet does not perform the way we want it to perform.
Yeah. But no, I was Jai and I live in the same town. We live here in Lawrence, Kansas, and we had this really partnership. Pitched a bunch of books, just could not find any traction, and Nick Lowe at Marvel came knocking at my door, and so it was an open opportunity. It was a bigger audience. Our book Dream Thief was not doing so hot sales wise, so it was just kind of like a dead end for me at that time. And so, working for Marvel seemed like the move. And also, I think something that I didn't know at the time, but since now discovered, is that it's actually, I can feel that Moon Knight and any book that I work on can be personal. I can always add something very personal to it. I always feel incredibly invested in, even in the company-owned stuff. I get just as much satisfaction out of it. It's I don't really actually look at it any different than working on my one creator-owned experience. So it's I just kind of keep all doors open. It's not like I'm going to that path where I'm going to do creator-owned. I just whatever comes along that seems like a good opportunity, I just go for it. And that includes stuff outside of comics. I try not to shut anything out. Just go with the flow, I guess.
Yeah, no. I'm really sorry if either of you took that question as there's something.
I was
against
deeply offended. I was so offended.
Company-owned
I was
work.
really.
But I'm really curious about the dichotomy because as a comic store owner, obviously we make a significant percentage of our income from the company-owned stuff. But as a person who believes in the medium, I always feel that really the thing that we should be doing is as much stuff that is benefiting the creator directly, and that dichotomy that between the two things. I think you're right, Jeff. I mean, I've never spoken to a person who does a company work that has ever given anything less than their 100%, and I think that everybody appreciates that. But I wonder sometimes what the difference, particularly because at a certain point you were writing 4 or maybe 5 comics at one time. And I wonder what's the right way to put this. I don't want to. The word that comes to mind was creative toll, right? So that you only have so many cycles of creativity in your head. And if you're putting that energy into something that doesn't benefit you as a creator, what is there a stress there? Is there a problem there?
For me, I think I found what my limit was at one point, and I'm pretty comfortable now with the workload that I have. I kind of know what that creative. I know what you mean by those creative cycles, and you only have so much in your head to give. But I kind of know what. For me, I find it a little bit different where I kind of need multiple projects in order to keep the creative fires burning, because by bouncing between them, it's what keeps me excited and keeps me energetic. Whereas if I just had one book, I actually think I might burn out faster if I just had one book, because you wouldn't have enough to think about, or enough, you couldn't take a break from it maybe. Having multiple projects forces me to take a break from Moon Knight this month and work on whatever, and then you come back to Moon Knight after a month off and you have new ideas. And I don't know, but I guess that's a long-winded way of saying multiple projects seems to work really well for me, especially combining creator-owned and the company stuff. I like having both. They both exercise different muscles, and I think the older I get now and the more I've been doing this, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting close to the point where I want to move away from doing 7 or 8 books a month. It's getting a bit much. So I think next year I'll cut down quite a bit.
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me. Are there different creative muscles that you guys use in any fashion between working on say, Greg, a Dream Thief versus a Moon Knight, or is it entirely you're just giving it your all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you're just giving it 100%. I was kind of surprised at how I didn't really feel any kind of difference, or any kind of shift or transition from working on Dream Thief to Moon Knight, or any of my Marvel work limited to Moon Knight. But yeah, it's weird. From my perspective as an artist, even if I've maybe told the writer what I'm interested in drawing or something like that, I'm still getting a script that's pretty much done before I put my hands on it, and so that's the same experience doing a creator-owned as it is doing the company-owned work. And so what it is it's just I get a script and I gotta bring it to life, and that doesn't change. And of course I want to do the very best that I can, and I heavily research everything. I usually I guess it's kind of like methodology. I the world that this story exists in, and but yeah, it doesn't change. I always thought that there would be a major difference, but maybe it's because of the type of Marvel book that I'm working on. It's not maybe it's not bogged down with continuity or crossover events and stuff like that. But I think I also have a style that lends itself to that. I don't think Marvel would ever put me on a book like that, just because my style dictates something kind of different. So it's I think I'll always have this kind of experience. I probably just wouldn't even. I don't think I'd be attracted to a book that gives me something different. So I think I like the being able to just get sucked into this world and kind of close everything else off and just do the book and just not worry about anything else. And it's just the same experience as a creator owned or a company owned. It's the same.
Yeah. In terms of process, how do you guys divide the work? I mean, you just mentioned, Greg, that you're getting scripts. Are you getting full scripts? Are they plot breakdowns? Are you guys talking it out ahead of time and then moving forward? What's your process on working on Moon Knight?
They're full scripts. Yeah, Jeff gives me a full script, dialogue. It's all there. I mean, Jeff allows me, some freedom to alter or change things if it's a story. But no, it's not the typical Marvel method. I don't like that experience once, a few issues. But I actually prefer to have a full script, because even if I am going to change stuff, I'd like to at least understand where the writer's coming from. I like to hear they have to say because that gives me a starting point. It allows me to work from there and come up with or generate ideas. If I'm dealing with a very loose script without any kind of breakdowns or dialogue, it's hard for me to imagine the scenario. And so even if I'm going to be improvisational, I'd like to have something to start off with.
No, that makes sense to me. Do you guys discuss the work ahead of time? I mean, what's your process, Jeff, in terms of the sort of the pre-planning the script?
It's pretty. I mean, this is the first time Greg and I have ever actually spoken. Aside from you, to be honest.
That's beautiful. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think I came on to Moon Knight. I had already written a couple scripts before I knew for sure who the artist was. So I kind of already had the general direction in mind before knowing Greg would be the artist. And then seeing him draw those first couple scripts, it kind of emboldened me to go further and push things forward. Knowing that not only was someone going to execute exactly what I wanted, but they're going to far exceed it. And that just gave me confidence to push everything further. So there's that kind of a dialogue between our work, not so much between us.
It's interesting. That's really interesting, though, that dialogue is happening on the page rather than, because I Neil Gaiman kind of famously said that he tailored every Sandman script to his artist, and he would like have a 2 or 3 or 4 hour conversation with this artist ahead of time to like, what do you want to draw? What is the thing that you want to do? And that fascinates me that you've not had that kind of communication.
But there's been a bit
Tell me about this. This kind of blows my mind, actually.
There's been a bit more conversation later on after we got past the first arc or two. Greg and I started emailing a bit more frequently, and he mentioned, and I was, I guess, getting close to finishing arc 2, and Greg mentioned how he always thought it would be cool to see like almost a Batman Begins style origin story of Mark Spector, because we hadn't really seen that, And as soon as he said that just sparked the whole third arc for me, and I kind of went back and basically did just that. And so there were little email things like that, but there were, I think, a lot of emails where like, we should really get on the phone, and we just never did. I think we're both too busy.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's actually kind of beautiful.
I do think Moon Knight.
What's it like for you, Mark?
You mean Greg? Me?
Greg, yes. No, that's...
Well, I do model Mark after me, so that's appropriate. No, it's... it's just as Jeff described. I don't always feel like I need to... It sounds bizarre, but I don't always feel like I need to communicate with the writer, because it is on the page like Jeff described. It is a bizarre relationship. Seems weird, but it's kind of an unspoken understanding. Okay, like this is where we're going. This is where we're going. I don't feel like it's not really necessary to vocalize anything. If the writer has an issue with something that I'm doing, if Jeff has an issue with something I'm doing, I guess they can always bring it up. But I feel like you just know if you're on the same wavelength. You just you get that sense, and I immediately took to what Jeff was doing in the series. I felt like I understood the tone, and that once I understood that, once I could latch onto that, everything else was kind of poured out. So. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. The interesting, I mean, we've interviewed, I don't know, 30, 40 people at this point in terms of creativity, and everybody has a different answer. And I really enjoy listening to what everybody's individual answer is, because each one is different from the one before. Yeah. Jeff, when you you probably did, I want to say 500, 600 pages of comics that were published before you started being a writer, solely a writer. Did
Right.
that influence your the way that you write comics?
Oh, absolutely. I still consider myself a cartoonist first. That's, my Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'm drawing. I'm not writing. I do my writing kind of on the side. So I think as a cartoonist, I think I just have maybe I don't know how to say this. Maybe almost a shortcut in my brain to breaking down the story visually for Greg or whoever I'm working with. Maybe some other writers who don't draw, they have to go through a bit more process to get there. A lot of that stuff comes very naturally because I can see it visually as I'm writing it very clearly. And that just comes from, like you said, drawing, I think, thousands of pages of comics before I wrote anything for anyone. I think it can't help but inform and help.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Greg, do you think? No, that's the wrong way to phrase that. In terms of the scripts, are they visually telling you what to do? Are they open? How do you approach when you get a script from Jeff? Is it I'm drawing what he says, or you're interpreting what he says, or you're expanding on what he says? Is that a question that made sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. He's got everything there in the script. I guess most of the work, the time that gets sucked up the most is spent on layouts and just figuring out how the beats go. Like, I mean, it just, because even though he's got the panel breakdowns, there's always the question of, from what angle are you going to depict the scene, and then how big is that panel going to be? And sometimes Jeff's got that worked out so that I can kind of get a sense, like, he's like, well, this is a big panel. I'm like, okay, well, this is a big moment. This needs, a little bit of build-up, so the panels before it should be a little bit smaller. But as far as the world itself and the visuals, I mean, he's got descriptions of everything. Enough for me just to completely visualize immediately once I'm reading the script. And so I usually just jot down stuff. I've got there's a script and all these little sketches and little layout thumbnails and stuff like that. So that's I'm just letting it kind of flow out as I'm reading the script. But no, it's all there. I mean, I mean, he makes my job pretty easy. I don't really have to do much. And once in a while, I mean, I'll change things around and open things up or expand on something. But I mean, generally speaking, I don't have to. It's all there already.
I'd love you to throw that script back up on the screen again.
Yeah, sure.
I saw that you've got it high lit and
just little.
Okay, so you're.
I mean, it's not going to make any sense to anybody. But there's I don't know if you can even make sense of that. So that's. I often draw my little thumbnails, and if I don't get to them within about a week, I won't be able to make any kind of sense of.
I do that too.
After that, yeah, I have to. So I make sure that I thumbnail as I go. I try not to get too ahead of myself. Or if I do thumbnail, then I get right to it and I start laying out the pages in Photoshop. So.
Yeah, you said we said in email that you have some process stuff that you can show. I'm curious, do you have your thumbnailing? I see directly onto the script.
Yeah.
Have a further breakdown? I'd love to see what you have.
Well, it's because I work digitally, and it's pretty streamlined. Yeah, here, let me see here. Let me open up a file here. I can just open up my template that I have. Let me see here. And then if I just hit the green button, right, screen share.
Yeah, the one that looks like an arrow pointing on the screen.
Okay, there we go.
And there's a little pop-up that'll tell you, yeah, right. Perfect. I see your screen.
All right. So are you seeing it? Okay.
Yeah.
The template that I use, you can see right here on the right side, just all the layers. But once I have that little thumbnail, I just start laying out my panels like so. So let's say if I've got two panels like right here, and you see how that kind of works. I can lay out and be really improvisational. And then once I've got some panels set, I will go in and do a little bit more thumbnailing. So just like really rough stuff. So really rough stuff. You know, Moon Knight's here and he's holding a torch or something like that.
Yeah.
That's all I got right there. That's all I need. That gives me a good. From that point, I take this off. From there, I actually start shooting photo reference and assembling my background reference. I use SketchUp a lot. Well, it used to be Google, but I use SketchUp, and that's got just a host of pre-made models and components in their warehouse online. And I use that a lot. But I also use here. Actually, here I can do process showing here. So this is Crowley. And I use him. So if I could take a screenshot and transfer it over to Photoshop, I can use that. I can actually just literally write over. And that allows me to maintain some semblance of consistency for the character in his face. And so I literally a lot of times just draw right over it like that. But yeah, I mean it's the digital workflow allows me to do really, really detailed work that I would never be able to do on paper because it would just take forever. But yeah, I've cut out a lot of the pre-planning stuff. So I'm not honestly like thumbnailing and penciling. I use a lot of digital tools for that, photo reference and stuff like that.
How much of your time is in that kind of layout, and how much of that is in the actual illustration?
Let's see. I'd say probably. I spent about 2 weeks on layouts, and then shooting photo reference or building a SketchUp model, and then actually about 2 to 3 weeks, and then I don't know. The inking just takes forever. Right? I can do an issue like this. This last issue I'm working on, I'll have it done in about 5 weeks, but I don't know, the last issue took me like 3 months, so it's just it's whatever time I have.
Wow.
If I don't have a deadline, just like bearing down on me, I'll take 3 days to do a page. And then I'll just put everything into it. It'll show that I'll have that. But yeah, I mean that's something. I've got on my to-do list, which is getting better at churning out an issue a little bit quicker.
Right.
But yeah, I can't honestly tell you. I can't honestly tell you how long it takes to do a page. Sometimes it's 8 hours. Sometimes it's I'm probably putting 36 hours of work into it, which is insane. But
That's interesting. How would you, Jeff, compare that to when you're drawing? Because that your art is very immediate, and that you're not necessarily sing that much.
Although
I've seen
I've fallen into some of those traps in the last couple projects. The one I'm working on now, I'm getting more and more into using SketchUp models and spending. I used to just do really loose pencils, like an hour or something, and then just start inking. And now I'll spend a whole day or two doing a pencil. So, in general, I'm a lot faster. It also shows.
Well, I mean, from my point of view, as a consumer, it certainly seemed like in sort of 2 or 3 years, you put out 500 pages of comics, Jeff, which is that's a lot of comics, right?
Yes, it is.
And it seemed very very immediate, and very just churning it out to see what happens. What's the thing that I learned? What's the thing that I do from this page? Is that right, or am I?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. That's how. I mean, I didn't go to art school. I just, like I said, when I got out of film school, I started drawing again, and I just self-taught, and it was all very. My whole sort of personal manifesto or whatever was just very immediate, spontaneous, and expressive. And I was trying to tell a story and communicate emotion, and not worry about creating something that's completely photorealistic. Get caught up in the details, I think it certainly works for me. But I feel like that now, 10 years later, you start to get fussy.
Well, I think one of the great strengths or a tablet, and a blank space to create whatever it is you want. I mean, that's one of the most strengths of comics. And I actually really like both approaches, and I think one of the things that's very interesting is that it kind of occupies the space between those two approaches. Between the very the very kind of specific fussiness that Greg brings to it. I think it's really kind
I have to be honest, I didn't hear a word that there you.
I heard fuzziness. I heard fuzziness.
in a good way, not in a bad way. God, that was meant as a good thing. No, I guess. Actually, let me. I have a couple of. I have questions here from people who are watching on the internet. So let me jump to other people rather than listening to myself talk. Peter Wong asks, why did you decide to make the Khonshu Mark relationship adversarial?
I don't know. Sometimes you don't decide things; they just kind of happen. And I was, I loved Warren Ellis, how he kind of presented this new incarnation of Khonshu, and I wanted to build upon that. It's weird. I don't know that I had a conscious thing where Khonshu is going to be the adversary. It just sort of, as over the course of writing the first issue, or the first arc, as I got to the end of it, that's just where it kind of took me. Sometimes I write very spontaneously. I can sometimes write a whole script for Greg in 2 or 3 hours, and it's almost stream of consciousness. So, and you just you get in the world and you start listening to the characters and you follow them around and write down what they're doing. And I know it sounds stupid, but it's true. And they just kind of took me there. So it wasn't a conscious thing, but I kind of love it now. I kind of love setting up our last arc as Moon Knight versus Khonshu and everything that means. And just having Khonshu come to represent Mark's mental illness, to me, became very interesting, and for him to become not this personification of power or of for Mark, but rather Mark realizing that it's never been that at all. Khonshu's the thing that his illness and the thing he needs to overcome. That became very interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I find that really interesting. Greg, what do you think of that concept? Do you approach the work looking at it from a bifurcated mind, or what's your approach on that when you see it in a script?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I just roll with whatever he gives me, you know. I trust him entirely, you know. I do like where Jeff's taken the story. I mean, and I'm very grateful that he saw you know, the potential in delving, you know, diving back into to Mark's past, and you know, revealing, you know, very critical moments in his history. You know, that definitely excites me. But I also like that we're moving forward with the New Egypt story and bringing that to a head, and bringing that conflict, you know, to a head. So yeah, I mean, it's perfect. I think it's a very, I think a very fitting conflict. I mean, Moon Knight has his, you know, his villains, his rogues gallery, but for me, I think it really sets Moon Knight apart. It sets Mark as a character apart by having this adversarial relationship with his, you know, I guess in a sense, his mentor. I mean, there really aren't too many other characters that have that sort of relationship. It's one more thing that I think helps break him away from the Batman stereotype that, you know, I think people often compare Midnight to. So.
Sure. Was there a difference for you in dealing with, because you had previously drawn Brian Wood script on Moon Knight? Was there a difference for you, Greg, between how Brian presented it and Jeff presented it, and if there is, how much of that maybe can you speculate might be towards Jeff being a cartoonist himself?
Well, you know, Brian is obviously a very visual guy as well. He's a designer, and I think both Brian and Jeff bring a very visual element to their comic book writing. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, having drawn scripts by non-artists, I can definitely see a difference. There's a stronger emphasis on visuals, especially even in the descriptions. There's not as much. Anytime I get a script by someone who's not an artist, there are always moments where I'm like, I see a description in a panel, and I'm like, oh, well, that's actually 3 different actions. That's not, you know, I can't just do that in one panel. And I've never gotten that with any of Jeff's scripts, and I didn't get that with Brian's. Brian actually did take the more Marvel approach. Or was it the Marvel method, or whatever they call it, where they have
the Marvel method is plot
and
first.
Yeah, and he did that on some of the later issues, which was an interesting experience. I had to ask him, like, oh, give me, you know, just a little bit more detail, just so I could, you know, like I said earlier, I could build on top of that. But the big difference between obviously the last run I did with Brian and this one with Jeff is the tone. The tone is completely different. Brian was focused less on Moon Knight and more about using the character to tell, you know, maybe I don't know how to describe it. It's not necessarily, you know, his usual brand of sort of political intrigue, a little bit of sociology in there, but also he had these high concept ideas for each issue, and we don't have that with this arc. And then the other big thing would be just the Jeff's emphasis on Moon Knight, Moon Knight's character, his mythology. I mean, everything. I kind of think of Jeff's writing on this is reconciling everything that's ever been done with Moon Knight, just kind of drawing it together in a way that makes sense. And with this arc, or excuse me, with this series, I was able to go back. I was able to lot of comics, and that was something I didn't. I have the opportunity to do when I got the first script in Brian's series. I had to start immediately. And I had no idea. I'd only read the I think the first Ellis issues. They weren't all out yet. I don't think they were all out yet when I started working on them. So I felt like I was kind of fumbling around. You can't really see it in the work, but there's a confidence that I have when I understand what I'm drawing completely, and then there's something lacking. I don't have that. With Jeff's series, I have that confidence. That's probably the most striking difference. When I look at I'm like, oh well, I knew the world now. And I didn't know it back then when I was working on Brian's series.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of use of negative space in your work, Greg, and I wonder. I guess my question maybe is how does that negative? I mean, are you consciously thinking of that negative space in terms of Mark's mental illness, or is that just me?
Not really. I mean, I would like to
into it.
Greg,
I would like to
just say yes.
I would like to say yeah, I know. I wish I could. That would make me sound really smart. But no, I think it is a conscious decision though to create a strong visual motif for the character. I feel like a lot of characters have that, and I want something strong that you can associate with Moon Knight. So if someone says Daredevil, you have these strong visuals that you associate with them. You think of like the scales of justice. You think of red. You think of a cross because of his Catholicism, and so for me when I'm working on Moon Knight, I'm thinking like, well, what kind of strong visual motifs can I add to the mythology of the lexicon of the character, and when I saw what Declan and Jordy were doing on the last series, I just immediately latched on to it. I like using negative space and white spaces. I feel like I just took it a little bit further, shoulders of giants, as they say. But really, I've never thought of it yet in terms of this. But I try to put that in the storytelling. Sometimes I try to create a sense of claustrophobia, pulling in the time handles a little bit tighter, stuff like that. Honestly, with the flashbacks, that easiness, that sense of weirdness, the Sienkiewicz style panels, that's obviously way of visually capturing his mental states.
Yeah. Let me ask you that same question, Jeff. Let me ask you that same question from your side as a writer. Are you not only, I mean, like in terms of how you perceive his mental illness, say mental illness, are you how does that change the way that you write for Greg, and also in terms of Greg's chops in terms of portraying negative space? Because I happen to think that that's probably one of his biggest strengths as an artist. Does that influence the way that you write a script at all?
I don't know if his use of negative space in composition really influences too much how I was writing the scripts. They've certainly, I think that's all Greg, and he adds this whole other layer to it. I wasn't planning on. But maybe a different way to answer the question is just in relation to using the different drawing styles to communicate the idea of Mark's various personalities. I think that goes back to what I said earlier when I saw Greg, the first couple issues, the artwork coming in, and I saw how Greg could do the Sienkiewicz style and maybe flow into his style. Once I saw he could actually pull that off, because not every artist is going to pull that off. Like I said, it emboldened me to push all that stuff even further. So just knowing how versatile he was and how you could just create a visual language. It gave me the strength, kind of gave me the inspiration to take all those little ideas and stuff I had at the beginning and embrace them and push them further. Whereas usually on a book, for Marvel or DC, not usually, but quite often, you start off with bold ambition. They're slowly eroded and one disappointment after another until it becomes something. And that's not always the case. I've had experiences, but Moon Knight's been a bit special.
Sure.
That's all Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I would really. That's why we picked it as a book club pick, because there was a spark there that you don't normally see in work for hire stuff, and I really admire the work that both of you did.
Not to interrupt, but Moon Knight. The answer to a lot of these questions is really just Moon Knight is like lightning in a bottle. You know, it's just me, Greg, and Jordy getting on the right character at the right time. And just Marvel just completely leaving us alone and letting us make it our own, and that doesn't always happen on these books. And like I said, lightning in a bottle. It's just everything. This book is greater than the sum of its parts. It's like Jordy, Greg, and I combined into some super creator that's better than any of us.
I actually kind of want to ask about Jordy here too, because I think that Jordy is really a fundamental part of this book, and we probably should have asked him beyond as well. To your level of communication, or is it entirely osmosis? It feels like so many other things. You guys have never talked before. So many other things are osmosis on this book. Is that a process of osmosis as well, Greg, or how much communication is there?
Not much. I give her a few notes if there's like, oh, you know, this guy is a blonde guy and this guy's got brown hair. But that's and it's usually that I usually leave that stuff up to her too. I usually have maybe 1 or 2 notes each issue. The rest of the time I just, she's got the script, so she knows the story, and I feel like that's good enough. Like if she's working from the script, then we're going to be in line. So I just let her do her thing. Just trust her.
I think the answer to a lot of
any notes in the script towards color?
No, just night or day. I stay out of color. I got enough to worry about. I just do that, Greg. But I think the better a book is going, it's almost like the less you need to communicate because everything's working. You know, it's the books where things aren't working well that you end up on email for forever with editors or on the phone all the time trying to figure out how to make it better and stuff. This is one where everything just kind of clicks. So there, there just hasn't been a lot of need to communicate beyond what I put in the scripts. I don't know what else I would have to say to Greg, and likewise, when I see the art and the color, it's just beyond my wildest dreams. There's not a lot. It just works. It's clicking.
You run out of ways to say like, "Hey, you did a really good job." Like you don't. I don't always know what to say to Jennifer Jordy other than, once again, fantastic.
I just add more exclamation marks.
Yeah.
Well, that really excites me. That you're because so often when we talk to people who do creator-owned work, company-owned work, it's just a job, and the fact that this has transcended a job, I think, really comes through in this work. I'm very impressed by this. Let me go to another viewer question from what is this? Doug Miles Sweefy? Okay, so Miles Schiffy asks, how has working on Moon Knight affected your views on mental illness?
I don't know if it's changed it. I think I had the same views I have now going into the project, and that's what shaped the book. So I think my views have shaped the book rather than the other way around, if that makes sense. And it's just that I don't know. It's a big question, but I mean, to me, mental illness is something that it's not something to hide or be ashamed of. It's something. It's an illness just like any other part of your body, and you need it can be treated and dealt with, and the more we put stigma or shame to it, the more people have to suffer when they shouldn't. And, I don't know. That comes from personal experience, and I put that into the book. And this is really Mark's journey. He's built this all these personalities and the superhero life as a way of maybe I don't know, dealing with his illness or maybe not dealing with it. Maybe and this is all of his journey, sort of accepting that yes, he's ill and he'll always be ill, but he can still be happy. And to get there, he just has to fight a bunch of monsters.
Oh, if only it were so easy. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Greg?
No, I mean, I think Jeff summed it up. I feel like it's Mark has just avoided the conflict, and now he's having to face his demons, and yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily changed any of my views. I mean, it's obviously it's Jeff's very unique take on mental illness. I did read a little bit about the dissociative identity disorder, just to get a sense of. Obviously, I love to do research, but yeah, I mean, I hope that it seems like everybody thinks it's been treated fairly as a subject. So
I think to fully understand what I want to say about it and how what the book has to say, we kind of have to wait to the end of our story as well. We're still kind of in the middle of it, so the end I think is where it really. I don't want to spoil the book, so I'll just shut up.
How far are you into the? Is this 4 arcs, 5 arcs?
I don't know how to answer that without getting in trouble, but we've written the end of their story. It's I probably shouldn't say it.
No, that's fine. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
there's an ending. There's an ending, and we know where we're going.
Yeah,
so
I've written the ending, and Greg's now drawing those issues. So this was one of those books where it was a very specific story, a very specific tone, a very specific mood, and it's not something that could go on for 50 or 60 issues. To me, it needed an ending, and I always kind of knew where that ending would be. So, yeah.
So here's a question in terms of have an ending, a firm ending for your storyline. How much of that ending do you have to be considerate or thoughtful about someone might come behind you? Like, are you leaving places that
I don't care. That's their problem.
I like it.
I don't care, because how could you possibly, no matter who writes Moon Knight next and who draws Moon Knight next, whoever that is, you could give 10 different people the job, and 10 different people would do something different with Moon Knight. So, what would I set up? How would I set it up? All I can do is tell my story, and hope that I've added more than when I came in. I think I've added to the mythology, and I've added to Mark as a character, and given them more to work with, if anything. Then that's beyond that. You just. No, I'm selfish. I just want. All I care about is our movement.
So I mean, I think you could argue that when Warren came in for his 6th, that he left it with several hooks that were possible.
Oh, yeah. There's no way our Moon Knight would exist without the groundwork that Warren laid. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you don't feel any obligation to do that for the person behind you?
No, because I think if you do a good job, you're doing it.
No, it's fine.
You know.
Good, awesome.
Well, I think
a couple more internet. Go.
I was just gonna say, I think what Warren Ellis's series accomplished, at least and even from a visual standpoint, for me, was it inspired, and I think that's the most important thing you can do for the creator down the line is tell a story as best you can and make it so good that they want to keep going with that character and tell their story in their version. But inspire is what I would say. Yeah,
well, why do so many people want to write and draw Daredevil? It's because they love what Frank Miller did and they love what Bendis and did. And so if you tell good stories and you put everything you got into these characters, you're inevitably going to leave them in a better spot than when you got them. So I think you're just I don't think too much about Beyond Me though. I just do my story and then that's it.
Well, that's actually an interesting
I'm
question.
assuming that they're not going to do anything.
It's over.
Sure, but how much did either of you? How much of either of you went back to what Doug Mensch and Bill Sienkiewicz were doing?
Big time. That was like the Warren Ellis and then the original Sienkiewicz Doug Mensch stuff was the twin pillars of everything I've done. It's all. I mean, there's dialogue in Mark's journal entries that I drew and wrote. That's all. Directly pulled from those early comics. They were very, very instrumental in the approach I took.
Greg, Sienkiewicz?
Oh yeah. I mean, I mean, I've got. I think I've got pretty much. I mean, I think I've got about the first 50 issues of the run, and I picked up these epic collections, delved into those. I mean, I've pretty much read everything I can. I mean, I went back and I read some of the 90s stuff just to see what other writers and artists.
I'm sorry about
character, there was some. There was some.
Most of that 90s stuff really sucked, unfortunately.
Well, I stole a lot from Tommy Lee Edwards. He did a
I was pleasantly surprised to find that little miniseries.
Yeah, that was really good. I like that. I actually, I dig that. And I stole a few visual things from him. But yeah, the original series though is I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I mean it's a big part of our story. So the original run.
Yeah. One of the things I'm always not impressed. I always focus on the original. It's sort of the journey that Sienkiewicz takes from being a Neil Adams clone to like suddenly coming into his own on the Scarlet stuff, where it's just incredible. It's amazing, isn't it? I don't know that I've ever seen another arc that the artist changed that much from beginning to end.
Yeah, that's I mean, aside from the character and everything, just that visual sort of journey you see Sienkiewicz go on over the course of that run is, as an art fan and an artist, that's pretty cool. I think to see it, and especially on one title like that, it's very, very unique and very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Very much. Okay, so more audience questions. Kelly Winquist. Well, you probably don't. I don't know if you can answer this. Where do you see the book going? Are you building to an endpoint?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
That was easy.
Yeah, and the third arc, which Greg is drawing now, and which will start soon, will start being sent up, published soon, is as we've already said, it kind of delves into Mark's origin a bit more. But it also, at the same time, continues to move the present-day storyline ahead as well. So we're kind of combining the past with the present and building towards our big sort of ending that we've had in mind.
Yeah. My Doug Slayton asks about the final issue that's in the collection and the multiple artists that are involved.
Yeah.
You're jumping sort of every 2 pages. You got Stokey, you've got Francavilla, you've got a number of people in here. What was the process like on that? Were you writing? Did you know who the artists were? Was that plotted out for their strengths, or did it just? Meeting a deadline.
I could lie and say yes, but the truth is, Greg is brilliant, and I love working with him, but he also ran into a bit of deadline trouble after the first arc, so we had to bring in other artists. But as soon as we started talking about that, it was one of those things again with Moon Knight where it just everything seems to work out. Bringing these other artists in, just all of a sudden it clicked, and it's like, oh yes, of course, that's a great way to illustrate Mark's various the realities he was jumping between anyway. So I mean, originally in the scripts I had envisioned Greg drawing it all, but drawing them in different styles. So it kind of it's another thing where it just seems to have a life of its own, and it worked out, and get to work with these other great artists. And, I think it really ends up adding a lot to the overall.
Yeah, it's one of the amazing things about periodical comics as opposed to creator-owned comics, that the bus never stops, right? Like it always has to go to the next stop, right? And so you've always got to be producing, and sometimes it creates these magical things that you couldn't have done, you know, when you're drawing your own graphic novel and you have 300 pages that you have to draw. It's very different than a book that has to come out 20 pages a month. No matter what, like it has to come out, you know. Whatever you do, you got to come out. Okay, so Peter Wong also asks, since Mark wears all white, how do you convey him as an intimidating adversary? I think that's a for Greg mostly.
I guess I never really thought about it too much. Well, I guess just from a basic level, I try to give him darker eyes to, you know, give him a more menacing face. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough though. I mean, I know there are moments where I wanted to show him with a grimace, but I you really can't do that with the mask on. But body language can capture a lot. Most of the time, though, I feel like Mark has been very vulnerable in the series.
Mark has not been very menacing.
Yeah, so I don't feel like there's that pressure on me to make him this like super badass. There are no, you know, like David Finch moments, you know, in the series where he's got he's hanging on a stoop of a building, like looking super cool. So it's mostly just been I've been able just to use the all white just to, you know, create some really neat, you know, visuals. That's about it.
Yeah. Jordan, did you want to ask a question about Essex County? All right, so Jordan is a fellow Canadian, and he's going to come in here and ask a question about Essex County. Lean a little towards me.
I'm going to sit on this.
So our technical director. No, come on.
I'm doing it. Let's do it. All right. Hey, how's it going?
There we go.
All right, so Essex County was one of those, I read it while living on a small island off the coast of British Columbia called Gabriola Island. I'm originally from Edmonton, Canada, and so, and I'd spent a lot of summers in Ontario, but what I really found really like inspiring about that particular book was how you made this sort of like bleak, desolate, you made me miss the prairies in that weird way, that like sort of like cold, quiet winter way. And I was wondering if like you kind of really nail that sort of like nostalgia as culture thing that Canada has going on that I don't think a lot of people really understand that well about Canada. And I was wondering, do you bring that sensibility to your work that you know is going to have a wider audience, or are you worried about sort of that sort of like sensibility seeping into your different work, or do you just tell your stories that are just for you?
I don't know. Essex County was such a specific thing. It was about where I grew up and the people I knew growing up and the landscape I was born into. So it's hard to bring that into other things because, you know, it's just such a specific story. But I do find that I kind of return to a lot of the same visual motifs and things in a lot of different things I do. Maybe not so much Moon Knight, but yeah, I don't know. Black Hammer, you can certainly see some Essex County in that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question other than, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Brian, we lost you.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Brian.
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay.
Oh,
No,
now we can. Now we can.
Now you can. Okay. So the last question I have from the audience, the question for Jeff, is about AD, the book you're doing with Snyder. Why the oversized format? What made you do that format rather than a standard format?
Yeah, it's funny, when I first started getting into comics, like I was saying back in like 2000 or whatever, it was like a lot of indie comics were going oversized tabloid. I remember like a lot of Paul Pope stuff were like these huge, some of the THB stuff he did was really big, and I don't know, the oversized thing was like a thing, and then books kept getting smaller and smaller as over my 10 years doing comics, indie books especially, and I kind of missed that big format, you know, and also we were already experimenting with format anyway, with the prose and comics balance, and we just wanted something that just didn't look like another comic book on the stands. It looked different, you know, and the size is one way of doing that, and you know, sometimes there's not a whole lot of thought behind it other than it just feels right, and it just felt right to do something a little different and to try to make it stand out a little bit, and yeah.
Was there any concern as a creator-owned work about the commerciality of that?
Oh yeah, there was. But, you know, I think Scott and I are both at a point in our careers where. I'm sorry, Greg, to talk about non-Moon Knight stuff here, but
No,
I think Scott and I are both at a point in our careers where we're doing pretty good, you know. So with everything else we got going on, if we did this book and it was a flop, we could both kind of be okay, you know. So it was a good. It kind of gave us the freedom to experiment and try something different, knowing that the book didn't have to sell 100,000 copies or even 50,000 copies. You know, our livelihoods weren't depending on it. We could just kind of follow our muse and let it be whatever it was, and yeah. So no, we didn't really worry too much about that. We just wanted to take risks, and we're lucky to be in a spot now where we can kind of afford to do that.
Do you think that in your career that you're at a point where you can start just doing creator-owned stuff and make enough money from that? You know,
Yeah,
I mean obviously doing 4 or 5 books for Marvel or DC is a pretty reasonable income, and creator-owned work is slightly different in its economics.
If just to be completely honest, and I'm not going to share any numbers or anything, but I make much more doing Descender than I do on any of my Marvel stuff. You know what I mean? And if I wanted to today, I could walk away from work for hire and make a very good living doing my creator-owned work. So I don't do the Marvel stuff as income. I do it because I genuinely love doing it, and I find every time I get someone hands me something like Moon Knight or Thanos or something, it's like a problem I need to solve. How do I make this me? How do I put myself into this? And how do I do something interesting with this? And it's like a challenge that I think over the course of doing all these things, they don't all go great, but I think I become I learn something from each project and then bring it back to my other stuff. But I think to answer your question, I do see a time in the very near future where I shift 90% to creator-owned stuff and just maybe do like 1 or 2 work for hire things just to play. You know.
Sure. Yeah. I just want to say, as a guy who sells comic books for a living, makes me so happy. I like my whole career as a retailer has been about trying to put creators first. And for you to say that you make more money from Descender from any of your Marvel work, just it takes my little black heart and just expands it and make it feel great. And I really hope that continues to be the case in the future. And
me too.
Yeah. Greg, do you see going back to Dream Thief at any point, or is that a done deal?
No, I mean we definitely we've got more stories to tell. We are working on some short stories that will be published in Dark Horse Presents sometime in the hopefully not distant future. But I think Jai and I would definitely like to go back and do at least one more mini series to kind of leave it a little bit more of a finished spot. I don't think I'm comfortable leaving it just as it is. We actually have we had a big ending. We want to do like 60 issues with this big grand idea, but we've kind of consolidated a lot of it and condensed it. But yeah, there's a really cool ending that we got in mind. But,
what is it?
What is it? Tell us the ending now.
Greg, it would be much faster just to tell us. Then you don't have to draw.
Yeah, I think so. I don't need to draw. I mean, that's kind of a waste of time.
No, I mean, I want to say that's fantastic work, man. That really was, Greg, and that was fantastic work. And one of the things that I have noticed over 27 years of selling comic books is that sometimes it's what I call the rule of three, right? Like a book sometimes won't take off until you have 3 spines on the shelf.
Yeah.
Right. Even if we look at something like Bone, right? There was a point at issue 16 or 17 that Jeff Smith was like, I can't make money off this. I'm done. I have to quit comics. I have to go do something else. And then the 3rd book came out, and all of a sudden the audience went, oh, this is actually a thing because there's enough of it that there's a presence on the shelf. I don't know if that makes sense to you as a creator, but I encourage you to keep going forward with that because I think that there's an audience out there for certain.
All right. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's very encouraging. I know I felt like there was no audience for Drink Thief. So, no, I mean, maybe we just stopped a little too soon.
Also, I think your work on Moon Knight is you'll have a lot more fans that will check out whatever you do next.
Yep.
So
I hope
that you didn't have before.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you both for being here and sitting through my questions and I want to say that I think I can speak for the 275 members of the club that Moon Knight is a fantastic book. We really love what you're doing on this, and it's just good stuff. Keep doing comics. The more people who do work like this, the more excited I am. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Our next book, our December pick is 100 Nights a Hero.
Oh, that's a good one.
Isabel Greenberg. It's a great book. Isabel is going to be here on January 7th, as I recall. Is that right? I'm getting a nod that I got it right. I got it right for once. And we also have Jeffrey Brown for the Kids Club. Jeffrey's actually going to be here in person on January 8th. For Lucy and Andy Neanderthal for the Kids Club. So that's really exciting to me as well. Thank you again, everybody watching. Everybody's going to be in over the next couple of months. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Greg. You guys are great. Keep doing excellent creator work, excellent work that's from your heart. Thank you so much.